The snow was falling softly even though it was still daytime, the pale winter sun hanging low in the sky like it was tired of shining. Christmas Eve had a strange way of making the world feel both hopeful and cruel at the same time. On a quiet city street lined with bare trees and half-decorated storefronts, Mara Ellison sat on a cold metal bench at a bus stop, her fingers numb as she stared at the last $10 bill in her hands. That small, wrinkled piece of paper was all that stood between her and the long walk back to a place she no longer wanted to call home. She did not know it yet, but the choice she was about to make would change her life forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet miracles that arrive when hope feels impossible, please take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel Kindora Life. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. Mara had not planned for her life to shrink to a single bus ride. Just a year earlier, she had been a nursing student with steady grades and a head full of dreams about helping people who felt forgotten. Then her mother fell ill, and the medical bills grew faster than Mara could work to pay them. When her mother passed away just before winter, the apartment they shared slipped out of reach, and the future Mara had carefully imagined cracked apart. Christmas decorations mocked her from shop windows as she moved between temporary shelters and borrowed couches, always promising herself that things would get better once she could just breathe again. That morning, she had been told there was no more space at the shelter she depended on, and the only place left for her was across town, a long bus ride away. The bus stop was nearly empty, the city unusually quiet for a holiday afternoon. Cars passed slowly, their tires hissing on wet pavement, while people hurried by with bags of gifts and warm coats, eyes focused ahead. Mara felt invisible, like she had slipped out of the world everyone else was celebrating in. She counted the money in her hand again, even though she already knew the answer. $10 was exactly enough for a bus ticket and nothing more. It meant warmth for the night, but also meant there would be nothing left for food, nothing left for emergencies, and nothing left to remind her that she still had choices. As she waited, she noticed an elderly man struggling a few steps away, his hands shaking as he tried to balance a paper bag filled with groceries. His coat was thin, clearly worn through too many winters, and his face carried the deep lines of someone who had worked hard for a long time. The bus had not yet arrived, and the man looked around as if unsure where to sit or whether he should stand. Mara hesitated, her heart fighting with her fear. She could pretend she did not see him, save her last $10, and focus on surviving another night. Instead, she stood up, walked over, and gently took the bag from his hands, guiding him to the bench. Without thinking too long, Mara pressed the $10 bill into the man's palm and motioned toward the nearby corner store, hoping he would understand that he should use it to buy something warm to eat. The man's eyes widened, filled with surprise and something like gratitude that went deeper than words. As he shuffled away, Mara returned to the bench, her hands now empty and her chest tight. The bus arrived moments later, its doors opening with a familiar hiss, and she realized she no longer had the fare to get on. The driver glanced at her briefly before closing the doors, and the bus pulled away, leaving her alone in the falling snow. For a moment, panic threatened to take over. The daylight seemed colder without the promise of movement, and the city suddenly felt much larger and more unforgiving. Mara wrapped her arms around herself and told herself she would walk as far as she could before night fell. She had survived worse days than this, she reminded herself, though her voice shook inside her head. Just as she stood to leave, the low hum of an engine approached from behind her, smooth and unfamiliar compared to the usual city noise. A long black limousine slowed to a stop beside the bus shelter, its polished surface reflecting the pale winter light. It looked wildly out of place on that quiet street, like a scene from another life. The back window rolled down, and a well-dressed man leaned forward slightly, his expression serious but kind. He had been watching from across the street, he explained calmly, and had seen Mara give away her last money without hesitation. He introduced himself as Adrian Colmere, a businessman returning from a charity visit, and said he believed that kind of generosity should never go unanswered. Mara stood frozen, unsure if this was real or just exhaustion playing tricks on her. Adrian gestured for her to come closer, and though every instinct told her to be cautious, something about his calm presence eased her fear. He explained that the man she had helped was a regular at a nearby community center that Adrian quietly supported. That simple act of kindness, given without expectation, had reminded him of why he started helping others in the first place. He offered her a ride, not just to the other side of town, but to a warm place where she could eat, rest, and think about what came next. The limousine felt unreal as Mara stepped inside, the warmth wrapping around her like a blanket she had forgotten existed. As the city passed by outside the window, she listened as Adrian spoke about second chances and how life had once broken him too, before someone showed him mercy at the right moment. He did not offer miracles wrapped in promises of wealth, but he did offer something better. He connected her with a nursing scholarship funded through his foundation, one designed for students who had been forced to pause their education because of hardship. He arranged temporary housing through the same community center, ensuring she would not be alone on Christmas night. By the time the limousine stopped in front of a modest but welcoming building decorated with simple lights, the sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky. Tears streamed down Mara's face, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen. She realized that the $10 she had given away was never truly hers to begin with. It had been a test of who she wanted to be when everything else was stripped away. Just before this story ends, please take a moment to comment below and share what part of Mara's journey stayed with you the most. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. That Christmas Eve, Mara did not receive gifts wrapped in shiny paper, but she received something far more powerful. She received proof that kindness moves in quiet circles, returning when you least expect it. As night finally fell and the city lights flickered on, she understood that miracles do not always arrive with thunder or applause. Sometimes, they pull up softly in the middle of an ordinary day, right after you give away the last thing you thought you needed to survive. And if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and engage with this video so more people can be reminded that even the smallest acts of goodness can change a life forever.